people. I'm Dr. Mo B. Thank you for tuning in and listening and taking time out to listen to me today. My last video, I shared with you just kind of like why I travel. And I heard a video that was made by, I think, the Black Experience in Japan. He had a guest on who talked about how he felt really safe in Japan. And he said something that I thought summarized was a great summation for why I travel and why we all should travel. And I'm going to try to quote him, but this is pretty much the summation of why I travel, as well as why he feels that we each should travel. Traveling, the exploration of travel, he says, is the accumulation of knowledge, spirituality, and intellectual wealth. I think his name was Mr. Q, and he was living in Singapore. He was an African, but I thought that was a great summation of why I travel and why we all should travel. I wanted to share with you today my China experience. China. So I listened to all of these different YouTube videos, and I'm hearing people talk about the great, wonderful time and how they love China and the food, and that wasn't my experience. I did enjoy China because I had an opportunity to see one of the what they call one of the greatest sites or one of the must-see sites around the world. So we arrived in China around June 15th or so, 2016. There are, I think, 10 of us in my group, eight to 10 people in my group, and then there are some other people who join us, and they are white Americans, and I think we had a couple from Singapore. I think there was a couple from Singapore there, and I'm not sure if it was Singapore. It could have been somewhere else, but very nice couple. So 2016, we arrive in China. We're planning to spend our 2 weeks in China. We go to 4 different places. Now, I may butcher these names, but I'm going to try. So we went to, because I'm trying to remember everything. Again, that was 4 years ago. So we went to Shanghai, Beijing, Xian, and Guilin. I think that's what it's called, Guilin. Those are the 4 places, and I think there may have been one other place. So we had intra flights as well, which was also interesting experiences. They're all valuable experiences. I learned, I enjoyed the attractions. Do I have to go back to China? Absolutely not. Check that off. That I personally would prefer to travel to African countries if I'm going to spend the amount of money that I spend in China. So I spent, I think, maybe $5,000 on that trip. We stayed in very nice hotels, very nice tour guides. We had professional tour guides in each of the places that we had an opportunity to visit. So all of the experience with the knowledge gained, I enjoyed it. The people, and I hear other people on YouTube say they haven't seen blacks, they're just curious. It was a little bit annoying, a lot annoying for me and my family. Great Wall of China. The others in our party, my other family and friends, decided to stay and not walk up. As you know, if you haven't been to China, the Great Wall of China is not something that you're gonna, walk the whole wall, because it's a huge, long miles and miles. But there are sections that you can go and you start to walk in those sections. It's June. It was just very, very hot. Very hot. So if you think Africa, if that's your thought and you think only African countries or the islands is hot, it was very hot during the time that we went to China. Matter of fact, I think we had some 90, I know we had some weather that was in the 90s, and it felt like 100. And we went to a park, and it was an open area, and it was extremely hot. And so get back to it. So we're walking up this wall. Again, I'm a big girl, so I'm already struggling. My niece wanted to go beyond what the rest of the group wanted to do. So she wanted to continue to walk. We continue to walk. I'm talking, I'm hot, I'm very hot, and I have some video footage that you'll see where, you know, we're walking up the wall and I have pictures, and the next thing I hear is TT. And I look around, I don't see my niece. So I thought, you know, she was next to me at first. She and I were walking side by side. All of a sudden, I turn around and notice there's a group of younger and older Asians. I can't call them Chinese. I don't know if they were Chinese, but they were Asians. They had it literally took her back to take pictures, and they were touching in her hair, and they were taking pictures of her like as if we were a spectacle show. That's how I felt. I told them that's enough. I was so angry. So that experience was more than enough. We're in Tiananmen Square, and I remember just seeing a camera come in my face like a cell phone. And before I knew it, because we're walking, and I think we stopped and paused to take pictures as a family and as a group, and we were looking, and a camera comes across my face, and I noticed that this camera is somebody taking a picture of me. So you may be in awe, yes, I'm a big girl, or maybe you in awe because I'm a brown girl. And then at that particular time, I was told by my travel agent that I had a haircut that a lot of the Asians wore, but because my hair was textured, they were fascinated. I find it very hard to believe, because when you do some research or when you go, you know that there's a black community in China, and there are black people. So maybe in some of the tourist areas, I can see that maybe these were not Chinese, and maybe these were Asians from more rural areas who had not came in contact with black people. Get it? All right. I'm not going to make excuses and say some of the things that happened on my trip was okay. So let me tell you, we did all of the wonderful things. We went to Tiananmen Square. We went to see the Terracotta Warriors. We went to the Shanghai Museum, which is a fabulous museum. So when I travel, I always try to go to at least one museum. Even if I'm traveling within the U.S., I try to seek out museums because I enjoy that. I enjoy learning about the history of the place and the people, and again, cultures. I think that's where you learn more. In weeks, I find it hard to believe that we didn't go to any restaurants that any one of us left in the entire group saying, "Ooh, that food was so good." It didn't happen for our group. It didn't happen during the time I went in the restaurants. And again, we ate out every single day, different restaurants. So I don't know what happened. You know, maybe we just didn't go to the best spots. But I think I had 2 meals that I really enjoyed. One of them was at the Traders Hotel. That was pretty good, and that was a lot of Asian dishes. So those were, I was able to pick like pasta dish, noodles, pretty much noodles and rice, and have the vegetables added. So that wasn't bad. And then I think I had at the Sofitel Hotel, I had I think cod, and that was good. But for the most part, I didn't really enjoy the food. And again, this is my experience, so maybe we just didn't pick good restaurants the entire time we were there. It was nothing to write home about. The people, again, another thing that I noticed, that at the restaurants that we went to, we were always seated at the back of the restaurants. I observe, I'm very observant, and so I noticed that we were seated at the back or on the sides of the restaurants. We were always served last, and maybe, I don't know why, because all of the tables, because we were a group, so all of the tables were filled, but we were never served first. We were never served. We were always the last tables to be served. I don't want to say it was because we were black, but it could be. I'm not going to play like that. That's not a thing. In China, through my experience, I think we went to an H&M store, and we couldn't get help, but we noticed that there were this was Shanghai too, there were other white people that were Americans and from other places that were getting help. And so again, I just noticed through my observations that there were some things that as a black person, I wasn't comfortable with in China. I don't need to go back. I took all of the pictures. I saw all of the wonderful sights. We went to, I think, 3 different shows. It was wonderful. One of the things that I noticed that a lot of the women were in, it looked like they had put white, like the Geisha girls. They kind of looked like they were walking around with white makeup on, like very white makeup. It was very hot. We would see women, and I have some pictures that I can insert, with long jackets on, mask, hats, gloves. And I asked the tour guide flat out, it's almost like 100 degrees. Why are they covered up? They don't want to be tanned, And one of the ladies continuously walked by us, because we were various shades of brown in my group, various shades, from a lighter brown to a very, very mocha brown, beautiful shades of brown. And so I know that people were fascinated by that, or maybe what they were, hadn't seen it maybe. But I again, we see these large pictures of people like LeBron James on the wall with a Nike. You see different athletes around. It was just not the most exciting place for me. My niece, we made the best of it. We didn't do a lot of complaining. We enjoyed the attractions again. My niece said, TT, I thank you guys for this trip. She thanked her aunt for taking her. She had a wonderful time. But my niece even said, I wish I had selected Japan, because she started to feel uncomfortable with the way the older gentlemen were kind of responding to her, asking her to come over, watching her. Her personality would change. She would then start to hold hands with my mother, or hold hands with me. And it just, but we didn't let it ruin our trip. And so from all of that, we still learned about the various Asian cultures, about the schooling system. I learned a lot about that. But again, I felt that it was a very scripted trip. When we used the tour guides, we did go off on our own to dinner one night. A couple of nights we went off on our own for dinner, and we had lunch where the tour guides would suggest and tell us or take us, and then we would go off on our own and shop in Shanghai. We got a chance to see neighborhoods, but it was scripted. It was very obvious that some things they didn't say because you just couldn't. I felt like they just couldn't say it. Another thing happened is when we were watching TV in the hotel at night or whatever, CNN a couple of times, or movies. All of the movies were really old in the hotel, and we noticed it kind of seemed like certain movies were playing. But anytime CNN said China, the TV would go black. So we tried to figure out. So we called and said, "Hey, our TV is going out." Well, they were censoring what we could hear and what would be shown on television. That's another thing that it was, for me, my experience, again, a great experience in terms of attraction and learning about the history that we were told. Enjoyed it. Would I go back to China? I don't have to. If someone said, "Hey, come go with me to China," and you require me to pay my money, would not be on that trip with you. I don't discourage people from going. When people ask me about my China experience, I tell them the truth. I give them how I experienced China and my thoughts about my experience. And that's not to say you will have those same thoughts. However, if I have to encourage you or suggest to you a destination to travel, if you are tired of doing the islands, or maybe you've been to so many of the islands, which I have, and you're saying, I want a different kind of vacation, I'm going to suggest. I'll even help you plan your vacation to an African country. Because I think as Black people, we need to see like-minded people, and we need to change the narrative that has been sold to us about Africans and Africa, which is the second largest continent in the world. So we know the narratives that we've been sold are not true. So I'm gonna tell you, save your money on Asia. especially China, and get to Africa first, where you can really grow and glow.